Today is a special day. We got a brand new bow from Hoyden, but not just any bow. This is literally the third bow of its kind in the world. There's two other people that have this bow, and that's Joe Rogan, Cam Haynes, and now me. So I'm very honored to be one of the few that have this bow. And you're probably wondering what the heck that is. Let's get it out and take a look. Here this beast is. What you guys are looking at is an Alpha X33 90-pound bow. So you're probably wondering what today's video is all about. Well, today's video, we are gonna set this bad boy up. Yes, I know you guys don't have a 90-pound Hoyt at home, but how I set up a 90-pound bow or my wife's 70-pound bow or any bow in between is all the exact same. And we're gonna dive into each and every step that I take to get this bow hunt ready. And I think you guys are gonna find this super valuable and helpful. And we're gonna go through lots and lots of tips and lots of tricks to be able to get the most amount of accuracy from your setup. So this is exciting times. Let's get started. So the first step when you're setting up a bow that you wanna do is actually put a rest on it right away. And it's not necessary to start tuning or doing any of that. We'll get to that, but we need to figure out where to put the D-loop. And we want to start with putting the D-loop on because the very first thing you want to do after obviously getting a D-loop and a rest on is actually check the poundage of the bow and then check cam timing. So let's pop on a rest and get a D-loop tied on, and then we'll get into checking timing and checking the poundage. Now, when it comes to rests, which ones should you shoot? QAD right here. This works really well. Good rest. Not a fan, personally. I like limb-driven style of rest, or like a Prophecy, another one is a fan. But I've been shooting the new Trinity Hunter by Hamsky. And again, as you guys know, if you watch our channel, we're not sponsored by anybody. So I buy and use what I feel is the best for me in that moment. Let's get this ready to rock and roll. With my draw length, I'm pretty much well aware that I need to support that arrow as long as possible, so I will secure this as far back as I can. So it comes with one of these little tabs. I'm going to stick that sucker back here because the further back the limb it goes, the longer it supports the arrow, essentially. We are going to get so into the weeds in this video. I mean, you guys are going to learn so much. There is so many tips and tricks I've learned. And what you guys have to understand is why I'm even qualified to make this video is actually kind of unique. You know, before I moved to Iowa, there was a really cool opportunity I had. When I lived in Ohio, I had one of the top bow technicians in the country who worked at Fisherman's Warehouse named Mark Menshaw. An absolute bow genius. And I knew eventually I was going to move to Iowa. And so what I did was I asked him, I'm like, hey, will you mentor me? I plan on moving to Iowa in the next 4 years. Would you please mentor me and teach me how to be a bow technician and do all this stuff? So for 4 years, one of the best bow technicians I've ever seen mentored me and taught me so much about setting up a bow.
What we're doing is shifting the center shot of the bow outward a little bit. So we're going to try to get the bow to tune as close to the middle of that arrow channel as we can. And
I was so grateful for that. And still to this day, I'm grateful for it. And a lot of you guys may recognize him. He was in that episode that What Are Friends For, where he shot the 193-inch monster. That was Mark. And well deserving of that giant buck. I mean, it's the least I could do for him helping me with all this. It goes a lot further than that. See, I don't shoot like competitive archery. I'm a hunter, and then in the off season, I'm working very hard so then I could take time off to hunt. And what that did is it allowed me to not be in competition with a lot of the target guys. But because of the nose button and like Levi Morgan and the stabilizers and I mean the grip tape and all that we actually offer, I became really good friends with a lot of the top level shooters on the planet. And so they've all been so nice to be able to teach me over the years of different tuning tips and tricks for maximizing accuracy and things like that, which again is incredible. And I'm so grateful for that. And so the reason I say all that is because I'm going to teach you a lot of what I've learned over the years. And I can tell you guys, some of this stuff is not going to be things you've ever heard before, but I can promise you it makes a difference. So we're gonna crank on this, guys. This is a long video, You're going to have to stick with me here. It's a little more raw, uncut, but man, it is going to be packed full of amazing information. All right, so what the heck am I doing over here while I'm talking to you guys? I am setting up my rest. All right, so this is a limb-driven rest. I'll explain what that is here in a second. All right, so limb-driven means it is down like this, and when I go full draw, this rest comes up. And then there, obviously, when I go full draw, the limb flexes back like this, which then puts this slack, which then makes this rest stand up. So then as the bow shoots, the limb drives down. When the limb drives down, then this rest goes flat. Where you adjust it on the limb itself will determine on when this thing starts to go down. So after shooting it in slow motion and wanting support, I like to support my arrow all the way to about the label. So I want that arrow to be completely supported by the rest until the label. And then I want it out of the way, obviously, before it makes contact with the vanes. So that is why I'm running the limb driven. That's why I'm running it back here. And we're gonna get this bad boy set up. Hamsky's gonna kill me for this, but I'm gonna show you guys. I'm just taking this off so you can kind of see how this works. So on a Hamsky rest, you can see how they have these wings right here. And so basically when this goes down, this rest, or I should say, let's use this guy here. So this is one I haven't modified. So basically what I'm going to show you guys is how I modify a Hamsky rest so I get more clearance, because vane contact, when you hit these things, is going to cause erratic tears, issues, and misses. So if you can see, this is where it stops. But if you look here, you can see there's not a whole lot of clearance if you shoot a 4-fletch. I mean, that is not very much. And so you're talking about an arrow flying through right here, and then for this thing to get completely out of the way, it's only there. So my problem was I was getting contact on these. But if you take this front screw completely out and you put a washer in there, what it does is it then allows for this rest to go all the way down. All right, so you can see that is where this one stops, straight off the shelf. And then you can see this one goes now all the way down. So I get maximum clearance. So little things like that can make a difference. Okay, so now we got the rest on. It's time to put a D-loop in. And again, this is one of many D-loops I'll put on before my bow is completely dialed in. The first D-loop, again, there's no, nock sets, nothing like that. I'm just going to be putting on a D-loop because I want to check the poundage. I want to check the cam timing. But the next step after that, I need to be able to move that D-loop up and down this string, and I'll explain then. I don't want to spoil it, but this is definitely something you guys don't do. So first things first, we're going to tie D-loop. There's lots of videos. I've done videos on how to do this, but something I haven't done a video on that I think you guys are going to really like is how efficient I can tie a D-loop on. You see a lot of guys tie D-loop on and then they're burning the D-loop on the actual string. That is a bad idea. So here's D-loop material. Another one, it's BCY 23 Spectra. This stuff is insane. Do not use regular old D-loop. I wish I had some to show you guys the major difference. I don't, because it's that bad. Every single D-loop you will get at a shop is not going to be BYC 23 Spectra, because this stuff's expensive and it lasts forever. I can go seasons with this. Because you guys remember, I shoot high poundage. You guys are watching this video. It's a 90-pound bow build. And I would last 4 months tops, if I'm lucky, through normal D-loop. This stuff literally takes freaking special pliers to cut. I mean, listen to this. Just listen to this. I mean, it's like wire. And even then, it's crazy. Okay, and so there's more reasons for durability, or there's more reasons than just durability for using 23 Spectra. If you ask the shop, I'm sure they'll hook you up. Shops also, that's where they can make some, a little bit of money when you get D-loops replaced and things like this. So I don't want to hit on the shops by any means, but the reason this works really well is because it's very soft. and very, very malleable. And so you think about this, I mean, it allows for you to have some variability in your shot back here and still be able to hit the middle and not have such a rigid string that's less durable. So there's no reason to do anything other than 23 Spectra. So now here's the steps. So again, I have figured out exactly how long my D loop is every single time. I may make micro adjustments in the D loop, but for starters, if I want a 3/4 inch D loop, I know because I marked on my desk here with a razor blade that this finished string needs to be 4.5 inches right here. To be exact, it's going to be 4.53 inches. So I know when I burn this, cut this, burn it down, and tie it on, it's going to be the exact same length every single time. This allows you to be able to replace D-loops. You need to do this. Now, the 23 Spectra does take a little bit of extra effort to get a good nail head. So you got to wait just a little bit. Don't smash it right away. And then take your fingernails, get right under the knot. And then we're going to smash it down, roll it, and smash it till you get a nice perfect circle. Like that. Okay. So now I got one circle here. Okay. So now what I do is I place that in that groove. Again, I cut that. Okay. So can you guys see that? So I place that in the groove, and then I take a razor blade with that right there in that groove. And again, this is 4.53 inches apart. And then I take another razor blade and I cut it right there. So that little trick right there is going to save you so much time. So now I burn this just like this. Here we go. Give it a little bit to just cool off. And then now I'm going to smash it in. And bam, I got a perfect length piece of string to be able to tie on a D-loop. The biggest thing when you're doing this, you're going to want is have both knots going away from you to start. So then it looks like this, okay? Now, it's very, 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 very important that you do not tie this in tight, because the second you put in a peep sight, this whole string is going to rotate. And then if you tighten this down and then you start twisting it, it's going to separate the string. All right, so now you can see the knots are going away from the shooter. If you're left-handed, it will be the opposite. So right here is the face of the bow. The top is going away. Now this side, you want the top to be going, or the nail to be facing you. See, I'm doing it wrong right here to show you. This is not what you want it to look like. So do you see that? Now you have both on the same side. Now this is okay if you shoot a handheld, or I mean a index finger. But when you go full draw and you start twisting your hand, then you're going to twist this D-loop. So you want to tie a twist into the actual D-loop. And so then what we'll do is I'll tie it on correctly now. So then you guys can see. Okay. Just like that. All right. Now, again, this is not how I run a normal D-loop or any of those things, because you have to understand that I run set knots. We're going to do a whole bunch more when it comes to actual nock tuning and tying in a D-loop correctly. But again, I'm just checking timing and I'm just checking draw weight. And so I'm just setting this up. So where do you put the D-loop to start with? This is going to be a very important topic, so I want to kind of go over this quickly. Believe it or not, the most important thing that makes a bow shoot well is its ability to aim well. Because, I hate to break it to you, it's not form. Because I've seen even top-level professionals with goofy form, and they sweep and smoke everyone. You know, form is irrelevant in terms of from archer to archer, because we're all biomechanically a little different. Some of us have long arms, short arms. Some of us has weird wrists. Some of us have broken their arms and have pins in their arms that makes their form a little awkward. There's millions of things. The most important thing is consistency when it comes to form, right? Be able to do the same thing over and over again. The tune of the bow is important, but it's not the most important. The most important thing is its ability to aim well, because if the bow is shot the exact same every single time, good tune or bad tune, you can sight it into the tune of the bow. So it is not most important. What is most important is definitely its ability to aim. So in order to figure that out, there are a few things that you need to do to get this bow to aim really, really well. And most people think it's all in the stabilizers. And the stabilizers are the last stop to making a bow aim well. The first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure your draw length is right. If the draw length, you know what? Let's go over this. We're going to go over too short a draw length, too long a draw length. Let's head up over here and we're going to do this. So how do you know if your draw length's too long or too short? Well, it actually all boils down to your ability to aim, because some people are like, well, if you're leaning back, then your draw length's too long. Well, Christopher Perkins is a great example. He kind of leans back in his shot. That dude's a freaking champion archer, a really, really good shot. And that dude wins all the time. Again, it just doesn't matter about form. If it aims well, it shoots well, and it's consistent. But that doesn't help you guys. So I know what's going to help you is things that I found that work for me when it comes to whether my draw length's too long, too short. So if the draw length's too long, we're going to look at pin float. But because these pins are so small, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a reference. Just set that down there. I'm going to use this as a reference and this as a bullseye. So if your draw length is too long, what you'll find, no matter what you do with your stabilizers, you get these big, long, sweeping pin movements like this. Long and slow. And you add weight on your stabilizer and it just keeps long movements like this. Now, on the other end, if your draw length's a little too short, what you get is short, sporadic movements like this. And so that's where you want to get it to where it's just dipping out or rising up. This stuff is bad. We need to fix that in the draw length. So if you don't know what to do, it's better to have too short of draw length than too long. There's a million reasons for that. If you're a hunter, having a slight bend in your arm is better than having it overextended because of clothes. You're just gonna have a little bit more forgiveness, because when you shoot the bow, you want the bow to go away from you. So if you're extended and shooting too long, the bow goes to the left, which could be an issue with adrenaline-induced shots like an animal or a championship shot or just tournaments in general. Because practicing's easy. It's when you introduce adrenaline that makes it so difficult, because when you induce adrenaline, your body responds very differently. So that's where having a super tuned bow, which is what we're doing today, is super tuning a setup, makes a difference, because it's more forgiving. So under adrenaline induced shots, you'll do well. So again, if you're picking one or the other, it's better to have too short of a draw length than too long. So again, what we want is that pin to park right there in the middle. And so if you start getting it, you aim and then you dip out, aim, dip out. Well, you're probably losing tension in your back arm or in your release. There's a million things. We can make multiple videos. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to do a video on aiming better. But again, we want this pin to park here. And how we do that is what we're gonna do next. I'm gonna show you guys on how to do this, and it starts right here, this early in the step. So let's go. Okay, so what I actually like to do is get the bow to aim as well as it possibly can before I put anything on it, excluding the sight. Obviously, I have to put the sight on. I don't even put a peep sight in yet. And so I run this D loop up and down this string until I get it to aim its absolute best. And what I've found, either dead center, which works well for some bows. Recently, what I've been finding, how I get it to aim well, aim the best, is at full draw with it completely naked. It almost feels like the bow wants to rise. I like that. I don't want it to set dead. I want it to kind of feel like it's rising, because then when I run a big stabilizer, it just freaking locks in on that bullseye. So in order to get it to feel like it's rising a little, I actually want my D loop to be just a little bit above center. And so you can measure from here to here, go dead center and work your way up. Or what I usually do, because again, this is just, we're very early stages here. I will set this kind of through the the top of the burger hole. And just to start. So that looks about dead center. It's not quite dead center. If you look, it's kind of going through the top half of the, let's see here. Yeah, so I like to go through about half the arrow is going through the top of the burger hole. And it's kind of hard to tell, but you kind of be able to see here. So if I look here, this is where that burger hole is. So you can kind of see how it's sitting about halfway up through the burger hole. All right, so that's a pretty good spot, an aiming spot. Another thing you can do, which I'm going to do right now, is if you have a good bow that shoots really, really well, like this guy right here, this is an 82-pound beast that freaking aims like a boss. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure from this cam to here because it is also an Alpha X 33, same exact everything. So I'm just gonna measure this so at least it gives me the same kind of idea. But that's later in the video because we don't need to worry about that right now, but it's a good tip for you to use other bows that you've liked in the past. So for now, what we're gonna do, we're just gonna set this thing kind of where it looks about right. And we're gonna start here. Okay. Again, I'm not cranking this very tight, by the way. Something else you're gonna wanna keep in your shop is a fork. Here's a great example. If you come and look at this D-loop right here, see that gap? That makes me nervous because this is a 90-pound bow. So what I like to do with the fork is I'll just come in, close that gap up a little bit. Get in here. Just close the gaps up, you know, makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. I don't necessarily know if it's necessary, but I'm not tightening this down because I need to be able to roll this on the string without it separating the string. So now that we got this thing pretty close, what we're gonna do is put it in the old draw board over here and see just how heavy this bad boy actually is. Kind of nervous. Okay, so we got the last chance scale here. Before you do all this, I just take a quick breather. You want to set this up to your draw length, wherever you think that is. You know, if you shoot normally 29-inch draw, set it to 29. You normally shoot 75% let off, shoot 75% or adjust all of this. So for me, with this 90-pound bow, I'll probably shoot 80%. I may shoot 75%. And I already got this all set up for my 31.5-inch draw length. You know, I've been doing this long enough, it's consistently the same. So those are things that you're gonna wanna do before you do this. All right, here we go. So we're cranking, there's, oh boy. Okay, so now it's back. All right, so first thing I wanna do is check the timing of the cams. So we got a little gap there and still here. So the top is a tad bit fast. So you can see it's touching here and then not touching down there. So if you're gonna have one be fast, it's good to have the top one be fast. I know some people shoot it with the bottom one being faster. I would not recommend that top being a little faster, but I usually like it dead even, okay? But in this stage of setting a bow up, fresh out of the box, there's gonna be some settling, which is why I'm leaving this full draw as we're talking. With Sarah's rigs, I actually leave Sarah's bow, that's 70 pounds or less, full draw overnight, which again, bow companies would probably kill me for saying that, but that allows for all the string stretch to happen. And so usually Hoyts come in hot and come in fast. When I was working with those guys, I told them to make it, you know, heavy. All right, and this rig is 94 pounds. Holy smokes. That is a beast of a bow. Now again, it'll probably settle in about 92 pounds, but 94 is freaking awesome. That's exciting. Now I should be able to draw this bow, unlike my 200-pound bow failure. 94 pounds is a lot different. So we should be in good shape. So what do we do next? We check the timing. Timing's good, straight from the factory, which is rare. So let's kind of go over what to do if the timing is a little off. So if the timing was off, say I wanted to run this dead even instead of a little high. So we knew the top cam is a little bit fast. So on these binary cam systems, so say your top cam is too fast, bottom cam's fast, whatever, you got to put twists into the string. So if you're going to put twists into the string, when you put your bow in a press like this, you can see there's some slack there. And if you want to put twists into the top cam, you come down here and put twists here. It's on the bottom cam. I know that's strange, it doesn't make sense, but by twisting it here, you can see this is actually going to be going to the top cam and vice versa. This one comes down here to the bottom cam. So we know the bottom cam is a tad bit slow. So we actually use peep tuners for this too. And I'll put this in the actual cable so it can be used for this. And I'm going to put it in this cable here, which is going to speed up the bottom cam. All right, so I'm just going to pop this peep tuner right into here. And then what I'll do, hold tension. So anytime that you're taking twists in or out, the easiest way to do it, just pop off this, and then you can rotate this down and then take it off. But again, whenever you're putting this back on, a lot of guys, when they're first starting out, and the reason I know this is because I did it, they just leave everything slack and start untwisting. Bad idea. Pull on this, look down, make sure everything's in its tracks, and with tension, then let it out like this. Trust me, I have had everything go wrong that you could possibly imagine go wrong, from bows blown up to my finger getting chopped off right here, literally hospitalized. I'm very lucky. Well, this isn't the bad hand. Awkward, I don't have a shirt on.
What'd you do?
I was working on my bow. The bow shot out of the press and cut my finger off. More awkward for me than you. Way to remember it. 1, 2, pull through. I got Frankenstein finger now. And look at this finger from a bow press accident. It looks better from this way. So, and it's because I made mistakes. So everyone always says failure's the best teacher. No, it's not. Other people's failure is the best teacher. Learn from this doofus. I promise you, you won't chop your fingers off if you just watch closely. But I do give advice based on my experiences. So here we go. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna come back here, we're gonna check timing and see, again, I didn't adjust anything other than just put that peep tuner in the cable, which should speed up the bottom cable. I mean, 94 is freaking insane. Again, just checking timing here. One time, I cranked a bow to 100 pounds, and this little tiny bolt here broke, and the whole thing went, blew up the bow. Yeah, it was crazy. All right, let's see what we got timing-wise. So there you can see it's touching, and then look at the top, it's also barely touching. So when it comes to real fine-tune, cam timing, these little peep tuners make a huge difference. 94, that is a beast. So now the next step is actually gonna be getting the D-loop in the right spot to get it to aim as well as it can. So a lot of guys will put on the stabilizers, do everything, they draw back, like, oh, I need to make adjustments, and they add weight, put weight. But again, that's all good later. Start with the naked bow. This is so important, guys. Start with the naked bow, get a sight on here. I'll put my sight on here that I plan on running, and then we're just gonna draw back, no peep sight, nothing, and just see how the pin float is. And then micro adjust this D-loop up and down the string until the bow doesn't move with no stabilizers. That is where you know it's good. I want it to feel like at full draw that the bow is trying to rise on me. Just a little, not a lot. And so the way I found to do that, you just run that D-loop slightly above the dead center, and that makes that bow feel like it's gonna rise up. So whenever you put out a stabilizer, that sucker just locks in. All right, let's see what we're working with here. 94 pound. Woo, we got a 94 pounder here. Let's see how she handles this. Wow. That is crazy. So I can draw it. Not gonna shoot it. I just wanted to make sure I could draw it before I put on the sight and seeing how it aimed. All right, we can draw the bow. Okay, let's get the sight on. So this Picatinny rail system right here. It's actually really cool. I'm a big fan. All right, we're just gonna put this on. Okay. Again, I don't care about sighting it or any of those things. I just wanna see how it aims. So what we're gonna do for this is I'm gonna draw back and then I'm gonna remember how the bow aimed. Then we'll go up there and we'll film this right next to me so then you can see on the screen how that pin is actually moving, and then we'll make adjustments until it's perfect. Okay, so I want a little bit of distance, and then I'm just gonna draw back and put the pin right on that dot, and we're gonna see how she looks. Okay. Okay, not actually bad. So what I'll do is I'm gonna run the D loop up a little bit higher, and then we're gonna see how it looks. Okay, so I take the fork again, and I'll put this right in here, separate this knot a little bit, and get this guy just kind of loosened up. And then a little bit can go a long way. So I'm just gonna twist this up the string. So there we go. We moved it up just a little bit. We are gonna test the way it aims again. Okay, here we go. Definitely better. Okay, so that was as high as I felt good with. So now basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring this back down and go lower, see if it's not better. All right, so now we took it down. You know, it's funny because what you guys are seeing is I haven't even shot the bow yet. I haven't shot it through paper, I haven't done anything, because none of that matters until you get it to where it aims its absolute best. Okay. It's worse. So I'll raise it back up to where it was, and we're gonna be in good shape. Yeah, again, I'm spending a lot of time on this because this is the most important part, especially for a guy that shoots a surprise shot, which I do. And I would encourage you guys to learn how to do that, or you'll get target panic. And if you have target panic, welcome to the club. You should be grateful you have target panic, because on the other side of target panic is the best version of yourself that you could be, which I overcame that many years ago. I had it really bad for like 5 years. If you guys think I should do a video on target panic, let me know down in the bottom. I can share a lot of insight with you that I've learned from Joel Turner's courses, from my own experiences, and a little tips and tricks to get through some troubling times if you're dealing with that. So definitely not in this video, but again, back to this, a surprise shot is important that the pin parks on the dot and has little movement as possible. Okay, so getting back to this, we're gonna crank this bad boy up. Imagine if there's a sweet spot with the bow with no stabilizers on it at all, a naked bow like this, that pin parks in the middle and it doesn't move, which is possible. And then you add on stabilizers, then you balance the bow like, holy crap, you're talking about a good shooting bow. So anyway, I get excited about that because that is a major tip for you that you should definitely take in consideration here. Okay, so we're going to try this guy now. Tighten this up a little bit. Again, guys, I know this seems like a boring part of the video. It's just really important because this is the foundation for the whole bow. And again, I don't even know how well this tunes. I don't know any of those things yet. But if I can't get it to aim well, you're not gonna hit anything. I don't care if it's the most forgiving bow in the world. You gotta get the bow to aim well. And so this is a critical part to do that, is getting the bow to aim as well as it possibly can before you put on your sidebar and stabilizers and all that fun stuff. Nose buttons, peep tuners, peep sights, all of it. Okay, so based on what I know, I think this is gonna be the winner. Here we go. We're gonna draw this back again. boys. That is good. As you guys saw, that aimed like a boss. Okay, so now we can move on. And again, we're not cutting this off. We're not doing anything. We're just gonna mark this location and we'll come back to that D loop in a minute. But that is awesome. So we've got the bow aiming really well right off the bat, which is just D loop location and cam timing. So again, if you're still struggling, not getting it to aim well, try running your cams dead even. That's another way to get it to aim well. If you're getting a lot of dips out the bottom, you can run your top cam a little bit fast and that'll help bring the bow up a little bit. Especially if you don't run a sidebar and you just run a front bar, you're definitely gonna probably want your top cam to be a little bit fast. All is fine. Also try less let off. If you run 85% let off, you are a loser. Do not do 85% let off. And I mean that. Run 80 to 75%. And I'm gonna show you guys why actually right now. We're gonna do a little side quest on why you should run less let off. Let's do this. So I grabbed one of my wife's old bows and I'm gonna show you guys why running low let off is a bad idea. So Sarah is running right at this one at 80%. So what that means, again, what does 85%, 80%, 75% mean? It means at full draw, 85% of the tension in the string is gone. Like, think about how crazy that is. 85% is gone. And so right here, this real rigid string that's hard to move, let's see what it looks like at full draw. So we're gonna grab this bad boy. We're gonna take this back. And again, look at the string tension right here. Look how strong this string is. I'm trying to separate it and move it. It is difficult. Look at this. I mean, I can't even pinch that together. All right, so let's pull this thing all the way back and now watch. Okay, so now we're full draw. And again, this is only 80% let off with a 65-pound bow. Look at this. See how easy this string moves now? Look at this. I can pull the string apart at full draw. Look how crazy that is. So this is why this is going to be so important for you guys to understand, is because when you're a full draw, and let's say you don't use a nose button, which you totally should because this could help. Facial pressure is a huge issue because let's say you push into the string, right? And so say you push into the string or do something to where now that string's pressed in because you touched the side of your face, or you got a mask on and you push the string in. Well, when you release, that string has to come back to center before it goes and obviously shoots forward. That air is going to be transferred straight into that arrow, and that is going to cause you to miss left or right, up or down, or who knows. A lot of guys will hit left or right with this because the facial pressure is usually left or right. This is where a nose button really makes a big difference because it has that spike in there. So the more you push into that spike, the more feedback it gives you on your nose, which allows you to know you're making an error in your shot before the bow actually shoots, which is pretty cool. And definitely get you guys some of those. It'll be the best 20 bucks you've ever spent for consistency and accuracy, I can promise you. And so again, shooting lower let off, so bringing this all back to the point of me taking this little side journey here with you, the lower let off you shoot, the more string tension is in your string, which allows for more forgiveness back here. Because say you twist it like this or do something like this, now you twist this center off, you know, because you twist and rotate into here and your D loop's not long enough. Well, now that has to, again, go back to straight, and you're gonna put errors in your shot every single time, and definitely in adrenaline induced shots on animals, tournaments, whatever, because you're just not going to be relaxed. And so everything's amplified. So again, lower let off allows for this. However, it all boils down to holding weight really with what you could shoot, because what you don't want to have is such low let off that you're holding 30, 40 pounds or whatever, and it collapses your shoulder and turns your form to crap. So you're going to want to train into this. I run all my setups usually at 75%. This 94 pounder, maybe a little bit different. I haven't, you know, shot it out there long enough. 80% might be good. I like my holding weight between 17 and 25 pounds. Depending on the setup, depending on what I'm hunting, 17, 25 pounds. Well, I need 85% so I can stay full draw for 5 minutes in case the buck hasn't stepped out. That's straight baloney. I will take a 75% let off all day long and hold it for as long as you need to, and then take that shot on a deer way more than I'd rather have 85% let off where I'm relaxed, because then by the time I do get to shoot my forms crap and you're going to miss. It is bad. Don't shoot 85% let off. And if you're too weak, hit the gym and get stronger, because that is going to make a huge difference for you. Let's get back to the bow. So what is the next step? The next step now is going to be adjusting this rest to get it ready to shoot through paper. We're getting really close to shooting. I know you guys are excited to see the bow shot. We're getting close. Let's do this. So first thing I want to do is set this level with wherever the D-loop aimed the best. So right here, grab my wrench. This is where it's obviously a little tail high or nock low. So I just need to raise my nock up to about there. And so we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to raise this bad boy up now. Okay, let's see. Let's see where we are. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, where the heck do you put the rest to start in terms of left or right? So what I actually do, a lot of guys think, well, they'll look right down the center of the riser and they'll put the rest down the center of the riser. But if you look at these bows, a lot of bows, especially Hoyts, PSEs, all the ones I've ever shot, there are spacers in the cams. And I want you to zoom in on those. So you can see that one side is bigger than the other. Now you're probably wondering, why is that important? Well, the reason that's important is because you want this rest to go down the center of the cam, not the center of the bow. And again, this is just a starting point. It may end up in the center of the bow. It may end up outside the center. But again, we're just going to line it up the center. So what I do is I look down the string. I line the string up with the part of the riser where the cam is based on that spacing, which is kind of right on this line. So then that's where I line that up. And then I line up the rest. So looking at this, that rest is actually already in the perfect spot. If not, adjust it to where it's right down the perfect alignment here. And then you're ready to test it through paper. Now again, you're like, well, wait a second, Josh, this D-loop's not tied in. There's all kinds of issues. You don't have any stabilizers. All of those things affect the tune of the bow. Why would you shoot it through paper before you put everything on it that you're going to put on it, like a peep sight and all this? All fair and accurate statements. The reason I'm going to do this is shoot it through paper because I want to make sure that there's no obvious issues. Like say I shoot this and I get a wicked left tear. Well, then I'm going to have to swap spacers on the cams. There could be something wrong. I need to switch, arrow spines, arrow lengths, point weights. There's a lot of things. I want to make sure whenever I shoot this that it's close, that it's within adjustable distances of the rest, right? So if it's like a little bit out, a little bit inside, a little high, a little low, I'm good. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot a bare shaft. So again, this arrow for this bow, this is what I'm running right now. This is a VAP TKO 175 spine. Big ol' honker, real thick. I'm running a 125 with a 75 grain insert. So 200 grains up front. I'm running a halo nock off the back. I love these nocks for high poundage because, the nocturnals are just not good for high poundage because they have a plunger system. This one does too, but what I like about this is it actually sits flush into the nock throat. So you can kind of see how it sits flush in the throat, and then it's the reverse effect that turns it on. So it's a reverse plunger system, which is pretty cool. So I do like that better than the nocturnals. So anyway, side note. All right, we've got it close. We're going to shoot it through paper to see if there's any obvious errors, and then we can adjust for that. If not, what we can now do, if it shoots perfect, we can cut this D-loop off. We can then tie in serving knot, which will go into this, and redo this back end, check for nock pinch, all that stuff. All right. I think it's time to shoot this bad boy through paper. And then I think you're all real excited for this guy. This is gonna tell us how fast this bow is shooting. This is a bow tuning video, super tuning setup, but you know, we're gonna have a little fun with seeing what this 90 pounder can do too. All right, here we go. First shots with the 90 pounder, 94 pounder. It's like a whole other level. Here we go. Holy smokes, that's a bow. Oh, all right, come check this out, boys. This is gonna be a good day. First shot out of the bow is a perfect bullet hole. Now this makes for bad video because now I have nothing to teach you guys. So this is what's so cool. I want to take, a perfect bullet hole straight out of the gate. Let's go back to the desk. Let's go over this because this is just craziness. But there's a lot that goes into getting a perfect bullet hole. We'll dive through them. I'll give a little crash course on tuning because this isn't going to teach you anything, but I'm very, 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 very happy about this. All right, let's do a little recap of how we got that perfect bullet hole. First of all, the cams were timed dead nuts perfect. I went and moved the D-loop up and down until we got that sucker where it aimed the best. And then, of course, based on where this D-loop was located, I adjusted the rest to where the arrow was perfectly level. And then in terms of left and right, I just aligned it right down the dead center of the cams. And it shot a perfect bullet hole, which tells me that my spine of my arrow is correct. Everything is correct when it comes to alignment, and we're good. Now, I'm a long ways from saying, all right, we're done. You know, because basically after we do bare shafts and we'll do group tuning, we'll shoot, you know, a fletched arrow with a bare shaft. There's a lot of stuff left to do when it comes to, you know, super tuning a bow. We're a long ways off, but we can keep moving on in terms of setting this bow up so then we don't have to worry about whether there's a mechanical issue with the bow itself. So let's dive into real quick, you know, what tears can tell you about your bow, things to look out for, and how to fix all of them. So we're gonna put this down. I got a piece of paper here that we're gonna reference now. So this little piece of paper here kind of will run through all of this. So let's say you get a low tear, high tear, right tear, left tear, whatever the tear. All of that is okay as long as it's consistent. Now let's say you get a low right tear one time, left tear another time, high tear the next time. You probably have form issues, okay? There's a lot of issues. We can dive into this total different video on how to solve all the paper problems, right? Paper is just a tell of what's going on, but it's not always cut and dry with what it is. But we're gonna go through the obvious stuff. So let's say you shoot and you get a nice left tear like this. So that means the shaft goes through here, the fletchings tear to the left. It says it right there, move rest to the right to correct. So when you're dealing with left and right, you move it the opposite direction. So if you get a tear left, then you move your rest to the right to correct it. Opposite effect, if you get a tear right, then you move your rest left. Now let's say you have a bow and you get a left tear, and then so you move your rest to the right, more to the right, more to the right, and that left tear is just not getting out of it, right? And that is a major problem because then what'll happen is you'll eventually get so far to the inside of the bow that you'll make contact with your cables, and then it'll kick a left tear and you're like, what the heck? But you're actually getting contact issues. So again, before it comes to any of this stuff, you need to make sure you're not having contact issues, which we can go over some different methods on doing that in a different video. Again, this video would be 18 hours long if I went through every single microscopic detail, which again, leave a comment below if you want to know if you're getting contact issues. I can make a video on that. However, if you are not within a few clicks left or right of the dead center of the cams, then there is a potential mechanical problem. When I say a few clicks, like literally probably 10 to 20 clicks, like the clicks are small. So things you can do, if you're getting too close to the inside of the bow, you can then swap the spacers in your cams. I'm not gonna do a video on how to do that. I don't wanna take this bow apart and do all that. It's a real pain in the neck. But you could swap them, that'll bring it out. Okay, so if you're too high or too low to where you're knocking points like this, knocking points like this, there could be nock pinch issues. There could be a few different things going on. Most likely it's a knocking issue. If you're getting inconsistent left and right tears, that could be your grip. Remember, relaxed grip. You got to let the bow do the shooting. If you shoot the bow, then you're putting human error into the shot every single time. Let the bow leave your hand. There's a lot of things that you can do to help fix this. You know, a lot of guys grip it too tight. A lot of guys do too high of a wrist. You know, a lot of pros, when you see the pros shoot, really good hand placement, they have a really relaxed thumb. You don't want that thumb like this. That's not good. You want that nice and relaxed, and these nice and relaxed. And usually you'll see that knuckle is a little bit higher here for form. Again, when it comes to form, I could do another video on what I've learned from the top guys. I'm not saying my form's perfect. I'm definitely working on it for sure, but I do okay. You know, I've shot a lot of animals at very long distances under a lot of stress, and that is not easy to do. And so I do know what I'm doing does work. But again, going back to the very beginning of the video, you can do the wrong thing as long as the wrong thing is done the exact same every single time, and you'll still hit the middle. So there is just better, more efficient ways of doing things. So again, talk with your pro shop or watch videos of the greats shooting their bow, model their form, and try and figure out the best way that works best for you. So again, hanging this back up, I want to get back to these paper tears. That little segue was kind of important, but we want to move on. All right, so high tear. So the arrow goes in here, but then the nock tears high, which it will look like this, okay? This means you actually raise your rest. So up and down, you follow the tear. So if it tears high, you raise the rest high. If it tears low, you lower the rest. So again, low tear, again, arrow goes in here, the tail goes in low, you want to lower your arrow rest. And again, if you run out of rest, like movability in your rest, which with that ellipse or whatever they call that thing, it's got barely anything. So that you can run out really quick. You then have to move the D loop itself, which I don't like to do. As you guys saw, we spent a lot of time getting that D loop in the exact location that worked well for aiming. So hopefully you don't run into those issues. But if you do, you will need to raise or lower your knocking point. But again, if it's a tear high, then you want to lower your nock, not the other way around. So again, with the rest and high tears, raise the rest, low tears, lower the rest, but it's the opposite for the nock. So with high tears, you actually lower the nock, and then for low tears, you actually raise the nock. Okay, so I hope that made some sense for you guys. I could do a more in-depth video on how to fix this, but once you get it to a bullet hole, a lot of guys are done with it. And honestly, that is a terrible thing to do. You don't want to do that because, first of all, as you guys saw, it's the first shot. I still have to shoot these strings in. So I've got to put at least 100 arrows in this before all of this even settles anyways. This is just telling me that there is no mechanical issues with the bow. That's all that I wanted to check for was mechanical issues. Crazy left tear, crazy right tear. Do I need a stiffer arrow, weaker arrow, all that stuff. Real quick side note for arrow selection. If you don't know which arrow to do, you're better off shooting a stiffer arrow than a weaker arrow. I can promise you it'll be a little bit more forgiving. Where that becomes an issue will be long distance. If you shoot too stiff of an arrow long range, it will not be as accurate as a proper spined arrow. But when you're talking under 30, 40 yards, stiff arrows are very accurate. You see a lot of guys that shoot indoor 20 yards using 150 spine. So again, you want to be properly spined, but if you don't know, err on the side of being too stiff. So again, 90 pounder, I'm shooting the stiffest arrow I can find, which is this VAT 4mm 175 spine with 200 grains up front. Freaking beast. Okay, so what is next? So we've got the rest, we got a bullet hole, we got mechanically aligned, we got a mechanically approved bow to where we know there's no issues. So what do we do next? Let's dive in. All right, next up, we are getting that peep sight put in here. So peep selection, let's go through some of the different options that I've run over the years, and we'll see what works best for you guys. Let's go. Okay, what peep to use? In years past, I've ran these Hamsky peeps. They're kind of long, pretty cool. The Raptor peep is also pretty good. And for many years, these, which is podium peeps, I do like. Now, how do you know which one to run? It's really going to determine what sight you use. So for example, let's say you run a big old honking sight like this, huge housing. Well, you're going to need a big housing peep to be able to fill this up, because you don't want the peep so big that you have all this room here. You want that peep sized exactly correct to where it fits right there. So then if you adjust back and forth like this during your shot, you notice it. Because accuracy, you need to have this properly aligned with the peep and the housing for it to shoot well. So I think I'm gonna install one of these bad boys. And I like this because it has Tim Gillingham on the front. That's the only reason I'm buying this. I'm just kidding. That dude's a stud. The reason why I want to use this is because it does have adjustable apertures. But what I will do with this, I'm assuming I won't need any of those because I run a sight so close. So whenever I put this in, my biggest fear is actually going to be that this is not quite big enough. And if it's not big enough, I will run a Raptor peep. That is a little bit bigger. It is so important that the housing lines perfectly with the peep. You cannot have it too small or too big. You need it to be perfect. Putting a peep in. You guys are going to learn really quick why we do not tie this in. In fact, I can think of about 1,000 times I've tied this in, not literally, I'm talking dozens of times. Tie it all in, put the peep in, and then all of a sudden it's over here. And then I go to move it, and then it separates the serving. So when you install a peep, your bowstring will have one of these in here. And the factory puts these in here to show you where dead center is. You separate this, that is the dead center. You need to have the dead center with wherever you put your peep, because if you don't, you will get really bad peep rotation, which then means you're going to have to buy a peep tuner to fix that. So that's actually a good thing. Yeah, guys, don't do dead center. Do off. Just make it off a little bit, so then you have to buy a peep tuner. No, I'm just kidding. The string is obviously all jacked up, but I don't care about that yet because we still have to figure out where this bad boy is going to sit. What I'm going to do is go over to my other bow and figure this out. So I put the one dead center of the peep here and 7.5 to the nocking point. All right. Put this bad boy at 7.5, and we know this bad boy's got to go all the way up here. Okay, so that is the same location based on my other bow. Now, a lot of guys will just tie this in. Do not do that. I will tell you, you'll see later in this video when to do that. Now is not the time. I'm literally going to tie a little bit of serving around this, but I need to be able to move this up and down because this, again, changes everything. If you want the bow to feel a little shorter, even though the draw length is the exact same, if you want the bow to feel a little bit shorter, run your peep a little tighter to your rest or to your D loop. You want the draw length to feel a little longer, run it a little bit longer. This relationship is going to be really, really important, and you will make adjustments to that peep, but don't adjust the D loop because, again, you've already figured out this D loop's best location is where it is for aiming the bow in its raw state. And so this is where you want to adjust everything else. All right, so what we're going to do is get a little serving, tie that. All right, what serving should you use? Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. Thanks for asking. Bowmar archery serving. Shameless plug, yes. No, seriously, this is the best serving that I found. This is what we use to tie in our nose buttons, which if you guys have ever bought one of our nose buttons, then you know this serving is the GOAT. So pretty awesome stuff. Again, I am not tying this in like how I normally tie that in. That will come in a different video, which I do have one. We'll put the link down here and how I tie it in. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to one loop and there's two. So, and then I'm just going to secure that nice and tight. And then I'm going to come down on the bottom, do the same thing again. 1, 2. Now that's tight. And I'll do it one more time just because it's 90 pounds. and it freaks me out. Okay. All right, and then I'll burn this. Okay, so now that sucker is locked in, but I can still move this up and down. So just because until it is completely secure, always keep this string that shows you the dead center in the bow. It's not gonna affect anything, just keep that sucker in there. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw this back and then sight in about 20 yards. Again, we know the tune's halfway decent, and again, we have not tied in the D loop yet. We still have a lot to do here. We're gonna spend some time on this, but again, I wanna get this sighted in to about 20 yards so then I can mess with this peep height and see how it feels. This is good to shoot. Look at this, boys. It's actually starting to look like a bow. A lot goes into this. You know, you gotta give your shops a lot of credit because they spend a lot of time making this seem effortless. But man, there's a lot to a bow build, and these guys are doing it. So give your shop some credit and some love for them doing this, because this is no easy task. It is very time consuming, and there would not be a lot of guys out there shooting if it wasn't for those shops. So hats off to those guys. All right, let's draw this bad boy back, see how this lines up, and we're gonna shoot this bullseye. What we're gonna do is just shoot about 7-8 yards and get this bad boy sighted in. Ooh, that is a lot of bow. Way left. All right, so we'll adjust this sight. Up and down isn't too far off, so that's good. 94 pounder ain't no joke. Yeah. Okay. All right, bow. This thing is insane. All right, I just have to know. We're gonna shoot that thing through the chrono here. We're gonna just see how fast this guy actually is. All right, there we go. Okay, let's weigh this arrow build and see how much this bad boy weighs. 625.8, so basically 626 grains. 625 grains. That is a heavy arrow. Let's see what the old 90 pounder shoots her out at. I have a feeling this is gonna be crazy. All right, here we go. $299.8. So it's 300 feet per second. Holy smokes, people. 300 feet per second with a 625 grain arrow. I mean, that is insane. We might have to weigh that arrow down a little bit more. We'll see what shoots the best, but holy crap. That's just craziness. All right, that's just absolute craziness. Okay. And again, once we get, the reason we're sighting it to 20 yards is because say this was way off yardage wise, then we like, oh yeah, the peep's in a great spot. Well, then that's not going to make any sense, because now when we adjust this, then it won't be. At the end of the day, you definitely want to get it sighted in and then, you know, be able to just check your peep to see if it's right. All right, let's do this. All right. Oh, we're getting closer. So up and down is right. It's just now we're got to crank her to the left. All right, and the reason why you want to get it sighted in to 10 yards, 20 yards, once I get it into whatever this 9 yards, then I know where my 20 is, so then I can adjust the sight all the way down to its max distance and then see if I can still get, you know, a shot through my peep. So a lot of times when you stretch it out like this, then you have to start drifting your hand placement down in order to get up in there. And I haven't obviously put on a nose button yet, and that's because we don't do that until after we got everything dialed in, because then that nose button, you know, may move based on where the 20, 30, 40, 50 all the way is, especially on these dialed sights. So and again, what I'm paying attention to is how the bow is aiming right now too. I want to know, is it aiming well? Is everything good? And so far, yes. The answer is yes to all of it. Okay. I moved it just a little bit too far, which is good. So we'll crank it back. All right. Okay, so now we got a peep sight set up. We are slowly but surely making our moves with this bow. We set the rest up, got the D-loop on, checked the timing of all of this. We shot it through the paper after we aligned this through perfect level out of where we found it aimed the best. With the D-loop, we leveled the rest with the D-loop, and then we put it right down the center of the cans. It shot a perfect bullet hole first shot, which is really nice. But of course, if you run into issues, we went through left, right, high and low tears of what to do if that is your setup. And now that we know the bow is mechanically perfect, we know the D-loop is aimed perfect, or the D-loop's located perfect for maximizing aiming. We know the peep height is super, super close. And now what's next when it comes to super tuning a bow is we've put a few rounds through this, okay? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to the press and we're gonna draw it back again and see if any of the timing has changed, which 99% of bows, that's gonna change. After you shoot it 1, 2, 10, 15 times, you know, that is all gonna change. So you'll probably likely have to put twist back in. The reason you wanna know if twists are coming out is because it goes back to the first thing we did, which was check the bow poundage. So now after shooting this quite a few times, we check the bow poundage. If it's 92, that is normal, and I'm okay with that. But you guys, when you check your bow, and let's say you got a 70 pounder, and it comes back and it scales at 70 pounds, you shoot it a bunch, it's probably gonna come back at 68 to 69 pounds. So you're gonna twist this back up to get it back to 70. You'll have to do this 2, 3, 4 times, depending on the strings you get. You know, a lot of times straight out of the gate, I actually swap out the factory strings with gas bowstrings. I love gas bowstrings. Okay, so let's move on. Now it's time to swap out this D-loop for a permanent D-loop. We know the height is perfect. We know exactly where the peep is good. Everything's good. We're gonna make this now a permanent thing. So we are going to do a lot of different things than what we just did with this guy. So first thing I'm gonna do is cut this bad boy off. We're gonna then get another one set up. But before I cut it, I need to mark where the dead center is. So I take a paint pen and I mark the dead center just like this. And then I do it on 2 sides, just like that. So now I know where the dead center of this is. So I can take a razor blade. And oh my God, be careful. I cannot tell you how many times I've sliced my string. It is annoying. So again, we're just gonna angle the blade up and away from the blade because it will slip. Now let's say you have a little string separation, you know, just from moving the D-loop up and down. What you can do is then take a fork. So like right here, if you look, there's the tiniest, weetsiest little piece right here. You can kind of see that. What you can do with this is then what you do, just go right above that and then move it down. And then keep doing this. And then the gap will go higher and higher and higher. And you just keep doing this all the way till the end. And that's how you can get that string to be tight again. So again, what we're gonna do is hang this back up, pull out the old D-loop material, go through this same process again. We're gonna feather out the tip, burn a nice nail head, let that cool off just for a quick sec. I like to take something metal. Again, when I press it in, I then rotate it and press again. And I'm pinching under the nail head while I'm doing this because I don't want there to be anything abnormal about the bottom. So then there's a nice even, you know, deal. I think it's perfect. That looks great. Okay, again, I take it over here in my little predetermined knot thing, which again, mine's 4.5 inches. Feather this end out again. Burn this bad boy. Let it cool off. Yeah, if your nail is thin, that could be a problem because it could pull through. I'm not going to take any chances. So you would think the next step is going to be to tie this bad boy back on, but not this time. We're going to do something different. you want to get some serving, and we're going to tie in a serving knot, but we are not going to use Bowmar archery serving. In fact, we're going to use the crappiest serving in the world, which is nylon serving. And the reason you want to use nylon serving is because it's very, very soft. And when we go full draw, I will show you this, but when that arrow is full draw, we'll put up a picture here, you can see that that arrow is actually not sitting perfectly flush in the string itself. There is an off angle there. So by having this soft serving, this serving can smash into the exact angle that that arrow is, and it works really well. So always put serving below and do just half hitch knots. So I'm just gonna go them up here. I'm gonna just wrap it around just like this. And right where that green is, which we know is dead center, I'm gonna go right to the bottom of it. And I am going to tie that tight. And that is considered one wrap. And then I'm going to go right below that wrap. Again, nice and even. And then I'm going to tie another one. And then I'll go above. So there's wrap number 3. And again, you're just going to go back and forth, below and above. Here's 4 to about 5 or 6. Sometimes more. Then on the last one, I will double loop it. There it is. Okay. So I look at this. It feels nice and tight. Again, fork comes into play. I'm going to smush this down before I cut it and make sure I'm rolling the string around, making sure it's perfectly 90 degrees on all of it. Same thing here. Just going to smash this nicely. So you can see that's about the size that I have. In terms of exact inches, if you're looking for it, let's just use a caliber here, 0.14. So that's going to be pretty good. So now what I'll do is I will cut this and always go from the top down. I'll explain to you in a second, and I'm going to burn this right away. Always go from the top down when you do this, not the bottom up, because otherwise you're going to have all this uneven thread. That's not going to be good because that's going to be the connection point to the nock. Okay. There. Now that we have that, now I'm going to tie in the D-loop. Now this is the permanent D-loop here. So again, I'm not going to crank on it again because it's one of those deals where if I need to micro adjust my draw length and use this as the string to do it, well, then I may need to do that. So we may need to twist this string, which means I don't want to be in a position where I separate the serving again. All right, so I barely give it any tightness at all because I still want to be able to adjust it to the nocks that I'm using. All right, so since, again, like I said earlier, I'm using halo nocks, this is where a lot of guys make mistakes. So there we got the nylon serving here. A lot of guys do this, and they will run that D-loop right tight up against that. You don't want that because, again, when this goes full draw, that now becomes compressed and smaller, this point, because that is the fulcrum of where that string is going to be bending, because that's where the D-loop or the release is pulling it from. So what you want is a little bit of a gap. How much of a gap? It's more of just like eyeballing, but usually if you could do that with the nock, that's kind of what I want right there. Just that little bit of play. Nothing too crazy, but that looks about right. Because I will now tighten this just a little bit more, and then I'm going to check the knots. Again, I'm going to take this with the fork, move this in, do the same thing with this side, recheck the separation here. Looks pretty good. And then now I'm going to tighten it more. Okay. There you go. So measuring this size of a D loop, this is going to be a little bit shorter than what I normally run, but you can see I normally run 3/4 of an inch, and that is almost 3/4, but not quite. So it's a little bit shorter, but that's okay. We'll see how it aims. It may do just fine. So now that we have this all locked in, right? It's good to go. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna check for nock pinch, because nock pinch is gonna be the #1 thing that will keep a bow from shooting well. Not the #1 thing, it's a thing. And again, if I need to adjust anything, I got this nice trusty fork. All right, in terms of nock fitment, like see how I'm doing this? It's usually not good. You don't want that. You kind of want this bad boy to be, when you clip this in here, that this right here free spins like this, but still clips. So this string diameter works really well for nocturnals. As you can see, that is kind of what you want. The halo, it's a little bit tight. So you can see it's rotating the string, but that design with that plunger system, that plunger's pushing into the string. So I have a little bit more flexibility with it, but if it's going to be a problem, we're going to know about it soon enough, because that is what this next test is going to show us. Let's do it. This section of the video, nock pinch or nock tuning. So now what we're going to do is we just put a plain old nock right into this, into the string here. And we're going to draw this back and then see where this points. So what happens 9 out of 10 times, if you don't tie in a bottom serving, this nock is actually going to be pointed up like this. That is bad. Again, that's an error. You want this nock to be pointing straight at the rest. That is what we want. And again, so setting up this nock is going to be super important. We are just getting this thing lined up here to where when I start pulling, okay. All right, guys, let's test this out. So we're just going to be looking at this nock as we draw it back. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to get down and you want to see that that is pointing straight to this rest. I put the nock or the serving knot underneath of this, which then forces that nock downward, which again allows for this to be more level traveling. And that is what's so nice about that nylon there, because that nylon is so soft. As I nock this 1,000 times over and over and over again, it will actually work a groove into this string to where that it will be absolutely perfectly flush. And so this is actually pretty cool. I am digging what I'm seeing here, guys. This looks pretty good. This is going to be a good shooting rig right here. Okay. You know, and with this being, you know, a 90-pound rig from Hoyt, I mean, I'm sure that they shot this bow and did a bunch of testing with this before they shipped it. So these strings could already be settled in, but we're going to find out. You know, we've shot it quite a few times, so I would imagine that we're going to have a little bit of stretching. So again, I'm going to check the timing of the cams. So now the bottom cam is actually faster than the top cam. And again, the top cam started out a little fast, if you remember. And then we put in this peep tuner right here in order to speed up the bottom cam. Well, what happened after shooting it is the top cam actually lost some of its strength. And so I haven't seen what it is, but I'm sure once we let it down, we'll know that the bow poundage is also dropped. But all we have to do to fix this, we'll just take out this peep tuner. And now that bottom cam would come back to being perfect. So that's another reason why you want to keep your top cam a little fast when you're doing the timing, because as you shoot it in, that top cam tends to get weaker first. And then if it's running a little hot, then after, you know, 20, 30 shots, that bow should be settled in nice to where it'll be perfect. Or you just make those adjustments with the peep tuner. Alrighty. Let's see. what this guy is now. It turned off, but maybe it saved it. Yeah, 92.3. So it's lost almost 2 pounds, which again is normal. We're shooting the bow in. I would expect it to be settling in by probably around 92, which is great because again, this super high poundage bow, it's not going to take as much shots in order to get those strings settled into the grooves, settled into all those. So now that we have all of this dialed in, it's back to the paper to see how close we are. So I wouldn't expect it to still shoot a bullet hole, but you never know. I mean, we're about to find out. Okay, so we should probably go over some problems actually before we move on to shooting this back through paper. Let's just grab Sarah's bow and look at this real fast. This will be a little bit easier to see. So what to do if you're trying to nock tune and you got issues here. So let's kind of dive into some solutions because again, a lot of these mistakes I don't have because I've done this so many times and I've set up so many bows that I know how to do it before the mistake doesn't even show up. But that's not going to teach you guys anything. So let's find an error here. Okay. So we come look at Sarah's rig. You could also see that this nock is perfectly level. The reason is because we also have serving tied under there, as you can tell, right there. So again, that's a great thing. So if you don't tie serving on the bottom, then what'll happen is this is going to be pointed up like that. That is not good. You don't want that. You want this nock to be pointing straight down just like that. And how you get there is by having serving underneath. And if you can't seem to get this, then make sure the serving up top is out. Also, if you only have serving on the bottom, but it's still pointing up like this, then you probably don't have a big enough gap from the top to the bottom of the D-loop. Remember how just a few seconds ago I said, make sure you have a little bit of play there? Well, this is why, because now that play will be tight. But if the play wasn't enough and you get too much pressure on the top of the nock, well then bam, it points up like this. Now, something else you want to check is to make sure that there is no play at full draw. That play is only relevant whenever the string is not under tension. When that string is full draw, you don't want there to be any play. So you want just enough play to where the arrow still points down, but not so much play that there's still a gap when it's full draw. So anyway, that's, checking your nock, and but that's super important step for maximum accuracy. All right, let's move on. So now the bow is settling in and we've got everything kind of more permanent with the D-loop, all this. So basically what I'm going to do, we're going to shoot this back through paper and see what changes are made, if any. I would expect it not to shoot a perfect hole, but you never know. Let's find out. We can fix that. Alrighty, so we got a different tear. Let's check it out. Okay, so that is a high right tear, as you guys can kind of see there. So now what we can do, the problem is, remember earlier in the video I said, if we have to go any higher, we're gonna be in trouble because of that rest. So I'll either have to switch rest or we're gonna try something a little different. So a little high, a little right. First thing I want to do, because I know the bottom cam is now slightly faster, I want to take out that peep tuner. So then we got even cams again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little serving in there to mark the center. All right, so that should even those bad boys up again. And then one thing I want to check is if any compression happened, which it did. So a lot of times as you're shooting, if you guys shoot 70 pounds or less, you're probably not going to have this issue. But what I've found shooting high pounds, 80 plus, is the more you start yanking on this, that serving starts settling a little bit, so you get a little bit tighter here. So basically what I'm gonna do is take this fork and loosen this serving up or loosen this nock point up just a little bit, see if I can. Just because the nocking might just be a little tight. Again, I'm just loosening up the nock just a little bit to create a little bit more of a gap because it compressed down on me a little. Okay. And then I'll retighten this. Okay, so again, we got a little bit of a high right tear. So I took out this to even up the cams. I took and added a little bit more space here. Again, I can adjust the rest and do all that stuff, but I wanted to make sure there was no underlying problems. And a lot of setting bows up is knowing there's something mechanically wrong and fixing the mechanical issue and not putting a Band-Aid on it. A great analogy would be, so you're driving your car down the road and it's constantly pulling to the right. So you could either fix the problem or you could take air out of the left tire. You take air out of the left front tire, if it's pulling right, all of a sudden now it's driving straight again. But in your mind, you know there was something mechanically wrong. Again, will it work? Yes. Is it best for the vehicle? No. So I'm just checking. These are just little tells of what could be wrong or what could be right. So again, little tiny things like this make a big difference. So here we go. We're going to shoot this again. Gap looks good. So this is good. So I took out the tear. I took out, the peep tuner. Made a little bit bigger gap in the D-loop, and it hit the exact same tear, which is a good thing. Consistency is good. So now I know that based on what it is and what it's doing, that is the tear, not any of those little changes I made. And so those little changes wasn't adjusting the rest or any of that. So that's a good thing. Before we go into super tuning the rig and doing all this, now it's time to add the stabilizer weights, because stabilizers, side brackets, all that stuff changes the tune. I'm not just gonna go and try to get a perfect bullet hole without having the rest of the stuff on here. And so that is basically what our next move is. Since I know that this rig aims like a boss, and it's an Alpha X 33, 82 pounds, 92 pounds. There's gonna be more holding weight on this one than this one. However, the balancing weight with where I'm gonna start in terms of what to put on the bow is going to be the exact same. So I run a Bowmar archery, side bracket here, 15-inch off the back, 15 off the front. In terms of weight, each one of these are Bowmar archery tungsten 3-ounce weights. So right here on the back, I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 ounces off the back. And on the front, I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half. So I have 7.5 ounces on the front, 15 on the back. So basically a 2-to-1 ratio there. So with heavier bow poundage, heavier pulling weight, I may need to add more off the front, but let's get this rig all set up. So what we have next is we're gonna be putting together all the fun stuff for stabilizers and brackets. So grabbing this, here is how I will rig this up. Bowmar quick disconnect mount. Super cool mount. This thing is definitely the best, like when it comes to side bracket mounts. For sure. And the reason is because we modeled this obviously after the gripper, which is also really good, made by AE, which is exactly where this guy gets made. So super cool. Very proud of this. So I'm gonna have to rig this up because something different that Hoyt's newer models, they don't have a lower back spot to put a bracket, which is weird. So I have to run this bracket off the front, but what I wanna do is also run a 10-degree down quick disconnect from Bowmar Archery. The 10-degree down I really like, and I will show you why. By running your stabilizer at a downward angle, the pin does settle faster. However, for micro tuning bow balance, you can actually see that the way this bow shoots the best with that 10-degree down angle, I can actually offset my front bar off to the right. So if you look, here's dead center. And you can see this bar is offset to the right. And so what I can do is I can now micro adjust this any way, any direction I want to really help balance my bow. So I always, no matter what, run a 10-degree down angle, because then basically you can change that angle to where it can be offset one side or the other. And that is going to be very, very important. We will shove that through kind of like here, like this. And we are going to be in good shape. All right. So now that we have this bad boy getting set up here, what I will run off the front and the back, because this is an Africa bow build. I am going to be not in a blind, rarely, to where I can have a 15-inch front bar and back bar and not have to worry about it, like hitting the blind and stuff. But once we get to deer season here in Iowa, I'll probably switch my front bar to a 10-inch bar, or maybe a 12-inch, depending on what type of setup I'm going to be in. I'm going to get this 15 on the back. Tighten this down just a little bit, just so it's not flopping around. Okay. Then what I'll run is a 15 off the front too. Now this take a little bit of a dance getting this all right, because you know it will take a little bit here to get the balance right and everything right. So all this is very likely to move. Again, we're just kind of getting a starting point here, just because again, I don't go hunting unless I can hold this bow back full draw at 100 yards and my pin stays inside the circle of a baseball. Like, that is how amazingly balanced I want my setups. So that is kind of what we're working with here. So now that we got stabilizers on this bad boy, again, aiming is always most important, right? So we got to get the bow to aim well. So basically what I want to do is I'm going to go full draw and check my bubble. I will draw an anchor and close my eyes. And then I'm going to open them and I'll see where my sight is. And then I will adjust this left and right until whenever I open my eyes, the bubble is in the middle. Okay, so again, here I go. I'm going to draw back and close my eyes. And what you guys are going to watch is where this bubble goes. All right, eyes are closed. Okay, so you can see the bubbles all the way to the right. What I should do is make sure to add in my quiver bracket weight. That's going to go up here because it's, again, things that could be on this side of the bow. Or I just have to bring this closer in, which I'm getting already pretty close to the string here. So we'll just go ahead and run this back. Again, on these Bowmar archery stabilizers, these little things actually you can use as micro balancers back and forth. Now, I would like to note something. With this sight, because it was a sight I had on another bow, I already know I did my first, second, and third axis. So before you start doing this, you need to make sure that your first and second axis is correct. And so setting that up, there's going to be many videos on there how to set up first and second axis, but it involves setting a bubble either on the bow or on the bracket that the sight sits on, and then adjusting it to where everything is perfect. I've already done that with this, so I don't need to worry about that. Little side note for you guys out there. Okay. All right, eye is closed, still over there. So there's too much side weight. So what I can do, because again, it's balancing more to the right, I need it to come more to the left. I can't really bring this in any closer. So I think what I could do is I can lower this down just a little bit, so then this acts like less weight. The reason it acts like less weight because it has less leverage on the bow. Okay, here we go. That is what you want. Okay. So, adjusting that down, now it is perfect. So again, when it comes to all this stuff, I will tighten this down, but we will make lots of adjustments with this based on how it aims at long distance. However, we've got a starting point. So we're not done yet, but we are at least getting close. So I'm gonna crank this down just a little bit so this stuff doesn't move on me. And then we are gonna be good to go. Okay, so doing a little bow examination to where we are before I was going to shoot it through paper again, because that high right tear was a little weird to me. I'm like, I'd expect it to be different, but not that different. And look at this. So if we go back, remember I put that green mark like right in the center, right? Well, if you look, you can see where that green mark is now. That green mark is it's went underneath this nylon serving knot that we put in here. So this whole thing is drifted on me, unfortunately. So basically what we're gonna have to do is cut this D-loop off, shift it back down where it's supposed to be, and then retie everything in. And again, this is kind of what doing this set stuff requires, a kind of back and forth. Usually I don't have to do that, but I'm just not used to shooting such high poundage bow to where there could be that much drift. And I'll show you what gave it away. So I pulled this plug or pulled the string off and showed where the rest actually sits, and you can clearly see that this rest needs to come up here. We are going to cut all this off and then lower it back down to where it was. Is a pain in the neck. I know, trust me. You're annoyed and you're watching it. Imagine me having to do it. It's the reason it slid up. You can see that string separation. That is not what you want. What you can do is watch this. So see that string separation? So this is now all compressed as tight as it's going to be anyways. So what I can do is just come up here, I take this and I work that string down into here. And I work it down. And then see, I just keep working it down. And see, this is now drifting, and I'll just keep doing this until it's gone. And it'll go all the way out to the end. All gone, which is cool. Now it's back to the Bowmar archery serving, because the Bowmar archery serving, it grips really, really well. This has got some extreme power. So I'm actually happy that happened. You guys are getting a little bonus tip on some insider stuff, what could happen if things go bad. Which separating serving is very, very normal. I mean, it happens a lot. Honestly, 90% of the time, I cut that off and I adjust it to fit the nock perfectly anyway. So then I will retie it my way, which is a little bit more hardcore, a little more secure, definitely less likely to separate. But for the sake of this video, for me going into that, it's a whole other video. I actually interweave it into the string itself, which is really cool. But again, this is nice for you guys because now you're gonna get to see potential problems that you can run into and how to fix them. All right, so we still got that mark of where the serving was. Checking, everything looks nice and tight. We are going to tie in another piece of serving. It happens, it definitely looks better. What I have liked to have seen is actually it be a little bit tail low, to be truthful. That would have been nice. I kind of want it to be a little tail low. Alrighty, so now that we have this tied back in, everything seems to be exactly right. We are now gonna shoot it through paper again. All right, let's take a look. Okay, so the high tear is now gone, you can see, but we have a pretty good left tear. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look and see what could be possibly causing this. Obviously, we've added a lot of stuff to the bow. So again, now it's like a crime scene. So there's obviously an issue, and we're gonna be like, what could possibly be causing the issue? The first thing I always do is I look at nock pinch, nock set, stuff like that. And to me, it looks like it's a tad bit nock low, which we can fix. So not a problem. We'll fix the height first. Now what we're gonna do is shoot this through paper again. All right, let's take a look. Way, way better. Okay, so we went from that to readjusting after the serving busted. Well, it just separated. We cleaned up the serving, retied in the D-loop, got this big left tear. We brought the rest, because it was a left tear, which is what this looks like with a bare shaft, we moved the rest right. And now we have the tiniest, eensy-weensiest tear. But we're not outside the realm of what I consider to be perfect in alignment. So, because remember what I talked about with the cam spacing, it should be just a little bit on the left side of center. So if we actually look at it from this direction, you can see the arrow is just left to center of the riser. Can you see that? So again, because the spacer, the bigger spacer's on the right, which means the cams are a little bit left. When you look at the alignment of this arrow is just to the left of the riser, which means it is in perfect alignment. I even have a little bit more I can go, which is perfect because I need a little bit more to go. So that is gonna be what we do. We move it a little bit in. And again, whenever I'm doing this in the beginning, I just eyeballed it, which is cool because now we're just kind of getting to the meat and potatoes of this. So I'm gonna adjust that inside just a little bit. Again, this is just to get it close. Once I get it to a bullet hole with everything on it that I'm going to be hunting with, again, we're just getting started. So this is where the tune starts. I know it's close. Then we'll group tune with the arrow and the bare shaft, and then we'll just keep going through. But unfortunately, that will be a different day because, you know, obviously group tuning and all this stuff, we've got to have the string settled before we do that. So I'm basically giving you everything up to group tuning. All right, so let's shoot this again and see where we are. We're gonna go right down the middle. All right, let's take a look. I mean, that is about as close to perfect as you could possibly get. I mean, I would imagine that is actually perfect. There's might just be a wrinkle in the paper. But I mean, that is so crazy. It's just maybe a tick tear low, just a tick. It's worth a second shot just to confirm. Whoa. Yeah, pretty much the same tear. It's just a tad bit low. So we're gonna adjust that. So again, tear low, which is what this is. What that is, that's low and left. These low tears, what do? You guys know. Now we lower the rest. We follow it when it comes to up and down. Also, you guys may not necessarily want to get it to shoot a perfect bullet hole. Some guys, I actually know quite a few professional archers that don't want a perfect bullet hole. They actually want it slightly, just the tiniest little bit tear high. And the whole concept behind that is when it comes out of the bow, instead of it being perfect, it actually has a little direction to it. They feel that having that little tear high, it comes out of the bow and that direction actually helps it be more accurate. It's a preference thing. I've done both. At the end of the day, I don't care what direction it comes out of, as long as my field points and my broadheads hit the exact same. As long as my bare shaft at 25 yards hits the dot, along with my fletched arrows hits the dot, I'm happy. Again, I'm just getting this to a point to where it's close, which is where the bullet hole is. And then I let the bow tell me what it likes after that. So we're gonna just keep going until we get downright perfect. And then we'll go and group tune. Alrighty, let's take a look. I mean, wow. I mean, that is so good. You can see we got just a micro tear to the left. I mean, it is as close to a bullet hole without being a bullet hole as you could possibly get. And so, this is close enough. You can see we're dancing around what's perfect. This is going to be close enough because, again, group tuning is what's going to matter next. So before we go any further, we got the rest. Let me show you guys. We got the rest within a few clicks of every direction that it's going to be. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the bow, put it back into the bow or into the draw board, check the timing again, and then see kind of how she's filling out. Maybe we'll check the draw weight again, see if she lost some more poundage, and which again, I'm okay with. 94 was a lot. 92 is still a lot. I'll be okay with 92, but we need to get these strings settled in before we start super tuning. Otherwise, we're gonna have to redo all of this. And for you guys at home, keep that in mind. Again, when you're watching this video, you're like, yeah, okay, I know what to do, I know what to do. And again, the end result, you gotta get a couple hundred arrows through this, or leave it full draw for a very long time. You know, an hour, 2 hours, overnight. I do that a lot. I haven't had any issues before, but that doesn't mean that limbs can't explode, because what you gotta realize is these limbs are under constant tension already, you know, so they're under more tension, obviously, at full draw, but that's really where the string stretches are. Other things I've learned about settling strings quick is, one, buying gas bow strings. Those strings barely stretch at all. The shooting those in take hardly any time because they become pre-stressed and pre-stretched, which is cool. You could also put it in the trunk of your car if it's summertime and let it sit in there for a few hours and bake. In a sense, that'll really stretch everything out. But again, before you do any of that, you need to make sure to check the poundage. So when you do stuff like that and you recheck the poundage, you know how much came out. Then you could retwist it up, shoot it in until it finally settles into where it's done moving. When it's done moving, that's where group tuning comes in, all of that. But what we're gonna do, just to speed things up, we are going to just keep going and keep doing this as if the strings are settled in, which they may be. So let's go and check on the draw board here. Real quick before I do this, I want to give you guys another little tip, because we may actually have to do this tip. So check this out. Now that we got it really close to perfect bullet hole, I run 4 fletching set at 75-105, which is this right here. The reason I do this is so I get maximum clearance with my sight. I get an extra 5 or 10 yards. You can see how close this is getting to this cable. I mean, I have clearance, but we're talking about 1/8 of an inch of clearance. So if I twist this all the way out, you can see how I now have contact with this, right? So if that's the case, what I can do to fix this is actually swap the spacers. And so the reason you'll ever want to do this is if you have a bad tear that you can't seem to get out and you run into an issue where it runs into the cables like this. So the rule of thumb, move the cams towards the tear. So in this case, if I had a left tear that I needed to get out, which I did, I would want the smaller spacer on the left side towards it. So if you look here, the bigger spacer is on the left side or on the right side. And so I would want to get a shim kit, something to where an even bigger spacer would fit in there with an even smaller one. This wouldn't work as just a flopping these, because you want to move the cams towards the tear. So I'd want to move the cams even further this way. And again, this could be form problems, a lot of things. I'm not going to do that. I could if I run into contact issues, but I think I'm going to be fine. So we'll know. We'll tell you everything you need to know at 100 yards. If you're hitting the dot every time at 100, you're good. If you're all over the place, your groups are crap, everything's bad, the bow's bad, you're bad, combination of everything's bad. So there's a lot that'll tell you at 100. But anyway, all right, back to this guy. Little side note, just because I wanted to make sure I told you guys that it's important. So it was 93 pounds, 92.9 last time we checked. So we're gonna put this in here, clear this. We're gonna draw it again. All right, we're gonna check cam timing. Touching in the tiniest little gap you can see there, which again, I'm okay with. Top cam being just a little fast. Not a problem. Okay. Yeah, 93 pounds. So it says 93.2. So it did not lose any poundage. That's in the realm of error of how fast I cranked it back. So we are in good shape there, which means the strings are settling in quite nicely. So this next step, you want to check your torque tune. And that torque tune is the relationship between your sight and your rest. So it's going to be how forgiving your grip is. So for example, you can grab a bow and I can torque it to the left, literally torque it to where it's almost going to derail. I recenter my peep with my sight and it'll still hit the dot, which is pretty amazing. If you are torque tuning and you torque it to the left, you recenter your peep with your housing and you hit to the left, which would be the way you're torquing it in this direction, then what you need to do is expand your sight further from your rest. The opposite is true. So if you twist it to the left, recenter, and you hit to the right, then you need to bring your sight closer or your rest closer. So what I always do is I run my rest as far forward as possible because I know with my long draw, I'm gonna have issues. I run my sight as close to the wall or to the riser as I can because again, I know I'm gonna have problems in the future just because it's hard for me at my draw length to get a bow to torque tune. If you shoot a 27 to 29 inch draw, you are gonna be in the money when it comes to torque tuning. So you wanna check this. Again, a lot of guys don't do this. I think it's very, very, very important. And we're gonna try it out and see what happens. Now, everything's kind of dialed in to where we know it's close. Again, once it's close, all this could change once you move your rest. But again, we are gonna go and torque tune now. So torque tuning always comes before group tuning. Just remember that. Because group tuning is going to be the very end. Once that's dialed in, you're not adjusting anything again. And so let's go and see how this bow torque tunes. This is gonna freak you out, by the way. Okay, because we adjusted that rest so far in and up and down, we're gonna have to resight it in. So first step, get it hitting the dot. So we're gonna go for the bottom middle triangle. Okay, too far to the right. Get more. Now we're talking, still a little bit to the right. Okay, so now it is close enough. So I'm not like trying to sight it into where it's hitting a dime, but it's close enough. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot a shot down there with no torquing of my bow on purpose at all. What I would consider perfect form. The best of my abilities, I'm gonna shoot down there. Then the next shot, when I'm full draw, if I'm aiming at you, I'm gonna grab my riser and crank it to the left like this. Keep it cranked almost to the point to where it's gonna derail my bow, and I'm gonna recenter my housing with my peep and then see if it hits to the left or to the right. So here we go. This is the control. So we want this to hit the dot. Okay, if this is your first time doing this, don't over torque. Just try to move your stabilizer 2 inches. Because if you try to over torque, it could damage your cam, it could derail your bow explodes. So be cautious that you don't go too crazy. So again, I'm not gonna aim any different. As soon as I go full draw, I'm cranking the bow and then I'm gonna recenter my peep with my housing and put the dot in the middle and then execute my shot. And what we're hoping is it will hit in the same dot within an inch. So let's see. Here we go. All right, so I'm anchoring. Now I'm gonna twist. So did you see that? Now I'm twisting and I'm holding it twisted. So I got this thing torqued. And it's right there in the dot. I hope to you guys, that is as crazy as it looks or to you. Like watching that should blow your mind because most people don't do that with their bow. Again, the reason why it worked the first time to where I could hit the dot is because I know for me, I run my rest as far forward. Let me step into the light here so you can see. I run my rest as far forward as I can and my sight as far back as I can. In some bows, I can't get to torque tune. I cannot get a Matthews to torque tune to save my life. Not at my draw length. I know when I've talked to Levi Morgan, he can't get it to do it at his draw length, but anyone 29 and under has no problem. So again, I haven't tried their new bows or asked Levi in the past 3 years if he can get Matthews to torque tune, but I could never get him to torque tune at my draw length. Matthews are great for, 27 or even lower all the way to 29, but when you shoot 31 and a half, I just have not had their bows do well. PSEs, I can torque tune really well. Hoyts, always have been able to torque tune really well. I haven't tried Prime, Bear, or any of those. So anyway, that's my little rant with that, because depending on what bow you have, and depending on how fast and brace heights, all that stuff, you may not be able to get them to torque tune. But again, let's walk down there. Let's take a look at this and see what we're working with here. This is exactly what you want. I almost Robin Hooded my arrow. Again, don't worry about where it is in the dot, but the fact that one shot was a perfect shot, and the second shot, you saw me cranking my bow and all of that. And again, what that is simulating is actually pretty cool, because when you got a buck of a lifetime and you're in a tree stand and you're having to shoot in a weird angle and you're like, meh, meh, and you're like, ah, and everything's freaking out, what do you think is gonna happen with your grip? Do you think your grip's gonna be nice and soft and relaxed, and you just go, and he stops on his own, you have no panic, and you execute a perfect shot? No, it's gonna be chaos, especially upstairs. Adrenaline's induced, you're gonna be holding the bow different because you're angled down, everything's gonna be different. In a normal situation, if you don't torque tune your bow, you will not get results like this. What'll happen is you will get freaking massive hits left or right. And if you've hunted long enough, you've shot bows that don't torque tune well, or you don't torque tune at all, and you don't understand. Every time you get on an animal and you shoot, you hit them bad. You're like, I shot him in the guts. What the heck? He was 20 yards, And so that's really where the scenario comes in, is when stress is induced. Everything's gonna be different. So let's take a second and go through torque tuning as if this didn't just happen on the first try. So let's do it. So we're gonna go over how to torque tune your setup. So you guys saw that both my impacts were the same. That's really not the case. So basically, when you torque it to the left or the right, let's just say you torque it to the left, let's say your impact is way over here. Okay, and then you torque it to the right and it's way over here. Or vice versa, say you torque it to the left and it hits on the right, and you torque it to the right and it hits on the left. What you're gonna wanna do is adjust your sight forward and backward until both of them hit exactly how mine hit, which you guys saw earlier. And so again, each bow might be a little bit different. Everyone's gonna be a little bit different, but the general rule of thumb is to bring the sight closer to your rest. And again, what I always do, just because I'm a long draw guy, I run my rest as far forward as possible. That's just what I do. And then usually I have to bring this forward or back. But with this Picatinny rail system, I can actually move this out a little bit and back. And so like if it didn't hit right, then I do have some adjustment. But a dovetail system that you can move it forward and backwards is really the easiest, because you'll just do detent to detent until it hits perfect. And again, this is such a great way to build a forgiving setup. I cannot stress to you guys enough how important this is. Every top level archer that I know, I mean, this is definitely a major part of this. But also the reason why I haven't tied in my peep yet, obviously we'll still adjust it up and down a little bit, but because you may have to adjust peep sizes depending on where your scope ends up. So a lot of people will set their scope exactly where they want it and then adjust their rest. But you can see with these rigs, I just don't have a lot of room to work with this style of rest anyway. So I always run my rest as far forward as possible. Otherwise I get a little bit, but a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch can go a long ways with this, guys. So don't necessarily think you need huge margins of movement in order to get, noticeable changes. It really doesn't take as much as you think. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tip on torque tuning. This is an important step. Now that we got everything dialed in exactly how we want, the next step is going to be group tune with a bear shaft and your fletched system. Obviously, you want these to be identical in weight as well. And so what that means is what you need to do is weigh this first. This weighs, for example, 625 grains. And then when I weighed this, it would weigh less because it doesn't have any fletchings. So with these weighing, let's just say 36 grains, I would want to wrap 36 grains worth of electrical tape on the back of this vane in the exact same position that the vanes are in. And then until this weighs exactly 625 grains, and this weighs exactly 625 grains. So now I have a bear shaft and a fletched arrow. So we saw that this shot really well through the paper, and none of that really matters as long as we're close, because now what we're gonna do is we're gonna shoot that bear shaft down there, and we're gonna see where it impacts in relation to this. And then we are going to make adjustments to the rest until both of those are hitting exactly like this. Let's do it. Bear shaft first. We're like 22, 23 yards, so nothing too crazy. Here we go. Bear shaft. I could just tell by the way the arrow flew, it looks like it's tail left. All right, let's go take a look. So we're actually really close. You can clearly see that the nock is slightly left of this arrow. You can see it's not in a straight line, but up and down looks really, really good. So if you come up from over here, you can kind of see how the angle is pretty identical here. So it looks like I just need to take out a left tear, which again, you guys, if you've watched this video, you know I need to move that rest in, which is not necessarily a good thing here, because now you guys know I'm really running really close to not having enough space for clearance. But when you're dealing with bear shafts at this kind of distance, a tiny little bit goes a long way. So let's see if we still have clearance to get this tear out. I'm going to adjust. Again, we had a nock left, which would be a tear left. So I'm going to move the rest in ever so slightly. Okay, here we go. All right, again, looks like a left tear. All right, let's go take a look. You can see that that left tear is still in there. Again, I moved it so little that I'm not surprised. However, it may take a little bit more than I expect. So basically what I'm trying to do here is, again, get these to hit the same. So stuff that's left on my bow that can make differences is grip tape. So I always add grip tape on my bow. I was going to do it after this and then see if it makes a difference or not. But I think for me, because I am feeling my hands sliding on that, it is affecting my grip, which could be affecting my form. So I'm gonna add the grip tape that I normally add to the bow and see if that fixes or helps fix that left tear. And then we'll keep moving the rest until we get a perfect hit. So let's go add the grip tape. And again, you could add the grip tape at any point to your setup. And for me, I just like to get everything dialed in as close as I can with the raw bow, and then add everything on and then make those micro adjustments after that. Adding in the Bowmar grip tape. Cool thing about our grip tape that you guys would probably love is that I add in enough for you to do your bow more than once. So usually at least 2. So I think that's pretty cool, because I could have made this a lot shorter and then you guys would have had to keep buying new grip tape. And instead I made it to where you can get about 2 uses out of each one. So I hope you guys appreciate that. Because grip tape can definitely affect how the bow feels and hand placement, which then can obviously affect your tune too. So if I'm running into potential problems like a left tear, then I want to make sure I actually add this back on there, just because it could actually fix that tear. Boom! She's looking more and more like a hunting bow every single time we do this. Oh yeah, that just feels so much better. It just settles right in there. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, if anything, it looks like a right tear now. I mean, you guys saw how bad that was, and that grip tape fixed that problem. And so that's pretty cool. We're getting close, boys. We're getting close. All right, let's go take a look. Yeah, that's exactly what we want right there. So you can now see that grip tape. By adding that grip tape on there, it took out that left tear, and now I actually have a right tear. So we are super, super close here, which is exactly what we want. So I'll make that a little bit of adjustment back. Again, in a perfect order, I would have put the grip tape on earlier. I have something, the reason why I didn't do it in this video. So if you guys made it this far in the video, you deserve to know what's coming. Because this is a long video, I get it. But the reason why I didn't do that is because we've invented a new product that I just got clearance for because we just got the patent approved, and that's a torque spike. And so I will show it to you. Stay right here. So the reason I didn't put the grip tape on before is because I usually put something on under my grip tape. And this is something we just got our patent approved for, and it is called a torque spike, which is this guy right here. And this is super huge. I wasn't gonna put it in this video, but I'm pretty sure it's time for you guys to learn because we are making these. We will have these before the end of the year, which is pretty amazing. So basically what this does is it allows for your hand to go in the exact same spot every time. So before you grip it in all these different ways, now when you grip it, you have a spike like this that your finger can rest on. So if you go full draw like this and your finger hits that spike, you know your hand is in the exact right position every single time. But that's not all it does. When you shoot let-off bows, like 80%, 75%, whatever, a lot of guys that are command shooters that shoot the index finger, what they do is when they shoot, they actually grab their bow. You see this in slow motion. Even in the top level professional guys, they grab their bow before the arrow leaves their bow, which then puts an error in your shot. So what's so cool about this is if you grab this, it's pokey enough to where you feel it and it's uncomfortable. So you grab it and you're like, oh, what the heck? Why did I grab my bow? And what it does is it teaches you to have nice relaxed fingers, because when the bow shoots forward, if you have tension in your hand, then it pokes your hand. But what this does is it teaches you to keep a nice relaxed grip so it shoots forward and your fingers are never ever interfering with the release of the bow. So again, something really cool. I've been working on prototypes literally for almost 4 years now. Pretty amazing. I know a lot of guys I've been secretly have been running these, and they have done amazing things for them in their shots. So pretty cool. And again, I bring it up now because that is why I didn't put a grip tape on before. So that torque spike usually goes underneath that tape like you can see in that other bow. And that's why I didn't put the tape on. But we got the tape on, we fixed that tear. Now what we're gonna do, right tear means we move the rest left. Listen, to get a bow super tuned and set up, it is not an easy task. It's just not. It takes a lot of time. There's no shortcut to it. It takes enormous amounts of work to get a bow to shoot amazing at 100+ yards. And to get a bow super forgiving that you can take out and hunt. I mean, this is what it takes. It takes a lot of work, a lot of tedious effort, and just never ending, relentless grind on setting this thing up. And it's just one of those things that if you do it at the end, the reward is so good because you'll have such a good shooting bow. All right, here we go. That looked really good. Like the nock travel. It hit low, but I'm okay with that. Because again, I'm not worried about it. Cut loose in the dot. All right, let's go check it out. All right. We are getting so close. This is in the margin of error at this point. But you can see I probably took it just a smidge too far to take out that right tear. So I just need to now, I got a little bit left. So now I just need to move the rest back in. I mean, 1/32 of an inch. I mean, it's that small. And it's gonna be hitting the same dot at that point. I mean, the same hole. And that is what we're gonna do now. Last round, boys, let's do it. All right, people, here we go. Last shot of the day. Again, if it is still a little nock high, I'm okay with that. I want that to be the case because this is, again, the final step for super tuning a bow in terms of like paper and bare shaft. Now, what's next is I go back to 80 yards and I would shoot broadheads and group tune with my broadheads and field points and see where those all hit. And so there's still one more step for this, but in terms of like super tuning, I'm going to be within a click or two. And honestly, after I get the bare shafts that hit with the fletched arrows, 99% of the time my broadheads hit the exact same spot, especially beast broadheads. I definitely have no issues with the beasts. All right, here we go. All right, I adjusted for the windage, but I raised the rest up, and I forgot that raising the rest up makes it impact higher. So again, I don't mind where it hits. I care about where both of them hit together. So here we go. Moment of truth. All right, let's go look. There we go. Right there, you guys can see that sucker is so perfect. I mean, that looks so freaking good. Again, the margin of error in this could just be my shot. Again, I'm not worried about hitting the dot. I can still sight it in, but we've got this bow where the bare shafts and the fletched arrows are hitting the same spot. So let's go back to the shop and close out this video. Well, there you guys have it. That is how you super tune a bow. And we went through everything from cam timing to D-loop locations to, I mean, getting the bare shafts to hit with the fletched arrows. I mean, that is not easy to do at 22 yards. And we did it. And I showed you guys from start to finish how that works. So again, things you're gonna have to do moving forward from here to really up your accuracy. You're gonna have to play with some of the weights here to get the bow to aim as well as you possibly can. So I wanna go over real quick, just rule of thumb. This will be a totally different video, super high level. If the pin is dipping out the bottom like this, then you need to add weight on the back. If it's climbing up out of the top, you need to add more weight to the front. And if you're barely getting dips, let's say it's barely dipping down, then you can just adjust this up. If it's barely coming up, then you could adjust this down. And again, because then now this weight is closer to the ground, which means it doesn't weigh as much in terms of leverage. It just doesn't have as much leverage on the fulcrum of right here. So anyway, guys, those are little things that you would want to do to get the bow to aim as well as you can. Remember, form matters, yes. Tuning the bow really makes a difference, sure. But having a bow aim really, really well is super, super important. All that other stuff, you'll still hit the middle as long as it's done the same every single time. What I taught you today was how to make that bow the most forgiving bow possible. So when things aren't the exact same, your form is not perfect, you're still gonna hit the middle. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know this was a crazy long video, I know. But there's a lot of information to go over. If you guys enjoyed this, or if you want me to do deeper dives in certain sections, or have other topics you want me to cover, let me know down in the comments. I love teaching, I love helping. I've been doing this for over a decade, long over a decade, probably 15 years now. It's pretty crazy to think about. And I wanna help you guys. So let me know. I love you, I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video.